Welcome everybody, my name is Danny Z. I haven't been here for a little while. The last video I think I made was over in the States when my family and I were traveling around, but I'm back. I'm back on the trail, and you're gonna get the first video right here, okay? Back in Australia, so let's crack into it. So what I wanted to talk about today was the three things that mothers in the trenches should ask themselves about fighting with their partner, fighting with their spouse, fighting with their marriage, fighting in front of the kids, effectively fighting in front of the kids, right? So number one is, why are you fighting in front of the kids? Or rather, why are you fighting in the first place? And that's obviously a big one. It's a doozy because, that's kind of where the root of it all is. Sometimes fighting can't be helped. Sometimes you have to come to the completion of an argument. You have to, if you're having an argument, you want to be able to resolve that, and we'll tackle some of the other issues there. But when it comes to fighting in front of the kids, I guess number one is why? Why are you fighting? Now, I like to give an analogy of all these little bad habits. Let's say that we've got a bit of a temper, okay? And this temper is manifesting itself on the tree of our life, right? As one of the peripheral branches on the end. So this hand is, and this arm is representing the tree, your tree. This is your tree, okay? So on one of the periphery branches is anger, and that's what's gonna get you going. That's what's gonna set you off when it comes to fighting with your partner, right? Spouse, husband, whatever. It's wine time, by the way. Okay, but down from that, the more primary branch that is supporting that anger, that is probably also that's supporting all these other habits as well, these other poor characteristics, bad characteristics, is perhaps it's insecurity. Okay, and then you come down from insecurity, and then you've got fear. Now, in order to identify, this is the thing with personal growth, personal development, is that you need to identify, you just start with the things that are right there on the surface, so it's good. Fighting, awesome. Okay, why am I fighting? This is where the systems person, I might even not even cover the other questions. I might have to cover the other questions in another video, because this so gets my gears going. When it comes to determining what you're going to pick on next about yourself, and I say pick on, I mean that, okay? People are growing up super soft. The snowflake generation, I'm a millennial, if we do not isolate part of the millennial generation as the snowflake generation, I think we really, really need to, because it's no, you're YOLO, you're living your best life. You're perfect. You're amazing. Everybody gets a medal, and everyone who's actually watching that knows that's bullshit, right? Because they're obviously not going to be watching this. But we do need to pick on ourselves. We do need to become better people. You don't come out of the womb perfect. You just don't, okay? It is up to us to make ourselves better so that we can make our lives better. So the first primary reason to want to engage in self-mastery or personal development or whatever is for purely selfish reasons. It is the direct effect that it has on your life, right? It's going to make your life better. If you suffer with a temper, if you can resolve the issues that if you can resolve the issues that bring forth that temper, then you're not going to get angry as often, and you're going to live a happier life. That's the direct approach, okay? That's totally selfish. That's right there on the surface, right? The indirect approach, why do we make ourselves better? It's so that we can stop having a negative effect on the people around us in order to make their lives better and hopefully give them an easier time of it. Because guess what? You got a temper and you're fighting in front of your children, that is going to have an effect on your children, on your husband. The flow-on effect is huge here, okay? So point number one, the reason we better ourselves is to, and by the way, there's boats going by. You're just going to have to suffer with it. I have to. They like parading in front of my house. I don't know. Anyway, so again, two reasons to make ourselves better: make our lives better, and make other people's lives better. All right. So when you decide to pick on yourself, because obviously that's what we want to do as human beings, we want to become better for the two reasons that I just said, then you get to look at the things that are most evident to you. In this case, it's fighting in front of your children. Okay? So then it's like, well, why am I fighting in front of why are we fighting in front of the children specifically? Is there something about my husband or my partner that I wish to expose about him? Is there a resentment going on in here? Because everything that happens, every choice that you make comes back to something that's written inside you. Every choice that you make, even the little nuances, the reason that I'm sitting with my arm this way, there's a reason for me doing that. I don't know what it is, but as of right now, I haven't identified it as a bad habit. Therefore, it'll remain that way for a while at least, okay? If we look at the things that, just pick the most evident thing. If it's fighting in front of your husband, fighting with your partner in front of your children, why am I doing that? Am I trying to expose him? If you can identify that that's not it, then you move on to the next thing. What is it? What's that thing? What's that thing that why do I do it in front of them? Is it because I have no discipline and I actually, even though I know it's not good for my children to see their father and me fighting in that way, do I have simply no discipline and I have to have it out right now, and that's because I believe myself to be, I'm so incapable of controlling myself, I simply have to have it out right now. Okay, so there's a lack of discipline there, all right? So follow that trail along. Where does the lack of discipline come from? Let's keep working on this, right? I have a lack of discipline, and therefore I will do impulsive things I will do impulsive things that will cause me greater harm down the road. For instance, fighting in front of my kids. That's going to have a negative effect. Obviously, husband, children, their parents, their spouses, etc., etc. We're not, we don't live in a bubble here. People, we're all affecting one another. If you follow it back, this is where it gets really exciting. You follow it all the way back. You will find, if it's not the root cause, you'll find something very close to the root cause. And all you then have to do to eliminate that negative trait is to figure out, because it all comes down to a habit. We're creatures of habit. I'm a creature of habit. That's why my arm is going this way. We're creatures of habit. And therefore, if you can identify the habit that causes that negative behavior, and you can break the habit down into its individual elements, where it starts as the trigger, okay? What are you triggered by? What's triggering you? And the further along you go within yourself, the further along you go down the branch, the more internal the triggers are going to be. Because it's not as simple as why do you, okay, so the habit is fighting with your husband in front of your kids, right? The trigger on that is going to be really super obvious. It's husband says something stupid, ergo I start fighting with him, and the kids are present because God, they're everywhere. And that's just the way it goes. So the trigger there is very obvious. And you don't have to go too far back. You can pick on the periphery branches if you want to. I'm not saying you can't. Sometimes you can't make it any further back than that. Maybe you're just not practiced enough. But that's cool. It's okay. It's fine. But you break the habit down. If we're all creatures of habit, that's a habit. Break the habit down into its individual elements. Start with the trigger. What is the thing that triggers me? Trigger's a very buzzword right now, but what's the trigger? And then what's the reaction to that trigger? What happens? Right? And then you eliminate the trigger. The further down you go, the more inherent, the more internal your triggers are going to be. Okay? If you've got ultimately a fear of abandonment, the trigger that is in you is going to be the thought process that says, I'm going to be abandoned, or whatever. So in order to eliminate that trigger is going to be a lot more difficult. You're going to need to actually put some real brain work into this. You got to put brain work into how, because I'm an optimizations expert. Because I'm an optimizations expert, it's very important to me to do things in the optimal way possible, right? Now, I can just tackle one habit, and if it's like the husband saying something that triggers me, then I can like meditate on that. And I can get rid of the trigger, and I can just effectively nullify the trigger. That's one way of doing it. The more optimal way of doing it is to take that trigger and establish an alternate reaction to that trigger. That way, instead of just nullifying the trigger, which then nullifies the behavior, I take the trigger, I keep the trigger, I reinforce a different behavior on top of that, which then nullifies the behavior, which is what I want to do anyway, and establishes a new behavior on top of that, and you get to choose the behavior. That's what's so fun about this, because you get to eliminate a bad habit, and you get to replace it with a good one. And sister, that ain't bad. If you can do that multiple times, you can eliminate so much shit going on in your world. It's unbelievable, right? I do this all the time. I'm coming up to 35 years old. I think I'm a pretty decent human being, although my wife would probably say otherwise. But if you imagine the person that you could become, the life that you can create simply by eliminating all of the bad habits that you have and replacing them with good habits, imagine what you could get done. Imagine the life that you could have. It is like, this is what gets me so excited. This is why I've got ideas for products to help people, and it all has to do with just rewiring the circuitry by tackling the habits that they have. Anyway, it all started with, arguing in front of your husband. Or arguing in front of your children. Who cares if you argue in front of your husband? But arguing in front of your children, it's just the symptom. Start noticing your symptom, okay? And if you want more information, I want you to go into the description. I want you to click on the link that is most prominent, because I've probably changed it. Click on the link that is most prominent, and I will give you something that is awful special, okay? You got to go and look. You got to check it out in order to get it, okay? God bless.